Good morning, everybody. This is Mrs. Vega. I am going to be doing a recording of our Chapter 1 notes, just in case you were unable to attend our Teams meeting or we had connectivity issues on Teams. So here is our Chapter 1 notes. Chapter 1 deals with the geography of Mississippi. I want you to sit for a second and just think about this question. How does location affect the lives of people in Mississippi? So go ahead right now and just think about yourself. Think about where you are right now, the state of Mississippi. How does that affect you? I'll give you an example. What college team do you cheer for? Do you cheer for State or Ole Miss? Well, why do you think you cheer for that team? You live in the state of Mississippi. Something as simple as which college football team you cheer for. Why? It's because where you live. Mississippi. I grew up in Mexico, New York. I had never heard of Mississippi State or Ole Miss, so I don't really have a preference. But if you grew up here and were born here, chances are you have a preference for one or the other because of where you live. Location. The most fundamental geographic skill is the ability to locate a place and describe its location. Every single geographical feature or place has a specific location on planet Earth. If you are in your house, standing in your spot, no one else can stand in that spot. That is your spot. You are in a physical location that's specific that no one else could be in because that is a precise point on the Earth. Location terms. These are some of our vocabulary words for the chapter. Latitude is distance north or south of the equator. How I remember latitude is ladder, north, south, up, down. How high or low are you? Longitude, distance east or west of the prime meridian. Longitude reminds me of long jump and track. How far can you jump east to west? Absolute location is the precise position found using latitude and longitude. And elevation is the height of land above sea level, like an elevator. How high are you, or how low are you? Where in the world is Mississippi exactly? Well, we are located in the Western Hemisphere on the continent of North America. And our absolute location is approximately between these latitudes and longitudes. We are in the southern United States, which is referred to as the lower or deep south. And we are bordered by Louisiana, Arkansas, Tennessee, Louisiana, and then the Gulf of Mexico. Bordered by. Bordered means that we share a border. We are touching that state or body of water. Mississippi's total area, which is how big our state is 48,434 square miles. Our land area is approximately 46,914 square miles, and our water surface makes up the rest. We are about 350 miles long from north to south, and we are about 180 miles from east to west. We are 32nd in size among the 50 states. So we're not on the smaller end for sure, but we're also not the largest state. Our census for our population in 2010 was 2,967,297 people. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the only amount of people that lived here. That's just how many people completed the census. And of the people that completed the census, this is the race breakdown of our state. We have Native American, African American, Asian American, Hispanic, Latino, and white/other. We actually just did a census again. We're wrapping it up right now, actually. Every 10 years, there's a new census. So next year, when I teach Mississippi Studies, this slide will be updated, and it'd be the 2020 census for Mississippi. For our state, we have fair weather. That means we see just about everything. We go through just about every season. We have summer, spring, fall, and a little bit of winter every now and then. Now, it's not as extreme as other states, but we do see all different types of weather. Our growing season, which is how long we are able to grow crops for, ranges from 210 days in the northern part of our state, like the Delta, to as many as 270 days along the Gulf Coast. The average annual temperature in Mississippi is about 62 degrees. So you may have thought we're a little bit hotter than that, but 62 is our average temperature. And our average rainfall is over 59 inches per year. All of this right here, great if you're a farmer. As far as our flora and fauna goes, these are two vocabulary words. Flora refers to the plant life, and how I remember that is I think of Flora, Mississippi. It's very country. There's a lot of grass and trees and plants. Flora. Fauna refers to the animal life. How do I remember fauna as animals? Think of a baby deer. What is a baby deer called? A fawn. Fauna. Our average July temperature is 81, and our average January temperature is 46. So that affects what types of plants and animals we have. Would we have a polar bear in Mississippi? No. Why? Because as cold as we get is 46. That's not nearly cold enough for a polar bear to live in Mississippi. As far as natural disasters go, we see just about everything. Mississippi's many rivers wind slowly in great loops and turns through soft soils. Springtime brings heavy rain and high water, and some rivers overflow their banks into adjacent floodplains and wetlands. We actually experienced a huge flood in 1927 called the Great Flood. More than 41,000 Mississippi homes were flooded, 21,000 buildings were destroyed, an entire crop was lost that year. In the 7 states affected by the flood, 246 people were killed. Due to that flood, Congress passed legislation to prevent or reduce the possibility of a similar disaster. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers established the Waterways Experiment Station at Vicksburg. That is still there. It is still being used. Tornadoes. Okay, they normally develop in the spring and early summer when warm, moist air from the Gulf Coast collides with cooler air moving south from the interior parts of the country. Mississippi tornadoes usually move across the state from southwest to northeast at 20 to 40 miles per hour. And this is how we measure a tornado. It's a Fiji scale. So EF0, not too bad. Some roofs and things might have damage, but we get all the way up to EF5 tornado, you're in trouble. So you can see everything in between. This is something that is important to talk about because we are currently in hurricane season. Hurricane season in the Atlantic begins on June 1st and ends November 30th. Hurricane winds normally extend over several hundred miles and move counterclockwise around a calm center called the eye of the storm. As a hurricane approaches coastal areas, its wind force high walls of water onto the land that can cause massive damage. We currently actually have Tropical Storm Sally in the Gulf that's about to hit Louisiana, who's just recovering from Hurricane Laura. So we are in the middle of hurricane season, and it's been pretty active this year. I mean, what else would you expect from 2020? This is similar to the Fiji scale for tornadoes, but this is the hurricane. Instead of by EF, you go by categories. Hurricane Camille was one of the hurricanes that affected us. Winds reached 200 miles per hour and struck our Gulf Coast on August 17th, 1969. More than 140 people died. One of the more, I guess you could say, famous hurricanes that we are known for is Katrina. It happened August 29th, 2005. It was considered the greatest natural disaster in American history, and the number of deaths have reached as high as 1,800. Property damage is estimated at more than $90 billion, and more than 80% of the city of New Orleans, Louisiana, was flooded after its levee system broke. That was not a good time for the South. Soil regions. Mississippi is some of the richest and most fertile soil in America. During the 1830s, a great land rush brought thousands of settlers from the Atlantic states into Mississippi, who brought with them the customs and traditions of the colonial South, especially the traditions of land ownership and slavery. During America's colonial period, landowners in the southern colonies had higher social status and more political power than those who did not own land. In some colonies, landowners could vote or hold public office. In the 1880s, U.S. Census of Agriculture Eugene Woldemer Hilgard, a former state geologist, produced a detailed map of Mississippi's varied agricultural regions. He divided the state into 16 different soil regions. That's how many different types of soil we have. But for everyone's sake, it got knocked down to 12 types. So you only have to remember 12 instead of 16. And these are the 12 different regions. Depending on where you are in the state, this is the type of soil that you have. And the type of soil that you have dictates what is grown. So this is important. And this is one of those reasons why Mississippi is so fertile and why we're so good at growing things, because we have so many different types of soil to grow in. The final section about our geography that we're going to talk about really quickly is just our natural resources. What's here for us? One big thing is water, H2O. Mississippi is blessed with an abundant supply of clean and clear water, and we must take care not to pollute our streams, ponds, lakes, and rivers. Water is important. Let's not get it all dirty and yucky. Father of waters, you might have heard that before. The Mississippi River used to be called the father of waters. It's from where our state takes its name, and the Mississippi River is almost 2,500 miles long. That's a very long river. It begins all the way in Minnesota and empties into the Gulf of Mexico about 100 miles south of New Orleans. The Mississippi River has 250 tributaries. Tributaries are little like rivers and streams that break off, and they provide 14,000 miles of navigable waterways and drain approximately 1,250,000 square miles, 50,000 square miles. We also have reservoirs. This picture might look familiar to some of you. There are 6 large reservoirs, which are man-made lakes, where water is collected and kept in quantity for use. In Mississippi, we have 6 man-made lakes. We also have a lot of these guys, catfish. Hundreds of catfish ponds dot the Mississippi landscape. Catfish production is the leading aquaculture industry in the United States. Catfish farming generates more than 46% of total value of the nation's aquaculture, water farming. Mississippi has more water surface acres and catfish farms than anywhere else. Don't know if you're familiar with the Kesha song, but It's Going Down, I'm Yelling Timber is relevant because more of the state's land surface is devoted to forestry than to agriculture. We are more responsible for cutting down trees and forestry than farming, which you might not have known. It's kind of crazy, but combined, all that land use right here, there's more forests. We have 19.8 million acres of forest land, which is 65% of our state's total land area. Trees don't grow well when the temperature is below 43. And because Mississippi's average January temperature is 46, you can always grow trees. It's continuous. The growing season for trees doesn't stop in Mississippi. That is why we have so much timber. And then the final thing is mineral resources. We have not been a major player in the nation's never-ending search for mineral resources, but we do have commercial quantities of sand, gravel, clay, as well as oil and gas. What we are most known for, though, is ignite, and it's just like a low-grade coal. So that is just a brief overview of the geography of our state.